afternoon, everyone. And this is the second day of CA week. कोशिश की जा रही है कि सीए वीक में जितना हमारा कोरोना से बच के हम अपना काम कर सकते हो अपने ब्रांच के लिए, अपने प्रोफेशन के लिए, तो कहीं ना कहीं कोशिश चल रही है और हमारे चेयरमैन सर को कहीं ना कहीं हम अप्रिशिएट करेंगे जो उनकी मेहनत है। अभी भी कोरोना के टाइम पे ब्रांच में बैठे हुए हैं। एंड आज सबसे पहले करते हुए मैं आग्रह करूंगा ब्रांच के चेयरमैन सीए शरद पालीवाल जी से फॉर वेलकम एड्रेस को सब लोगों का वेलकम करें।
थैंक यू सुदीप भाई, इमीडिएट पास चेयरमैन आगरा ब्रांच। सबसे पहले तो ये कि मैं जो ब्रांच पर बैठा हूँ तो हमें अपने आईसीआई प्रेसिडेंट जो इस समय अतुल गुप्ता जी हैं उनसे भी बहुत इंस्पिरेशन मिलता है। वो एक प्रोग्राम अभी हुआ था संडे को, तो संडे को भी वो आईसीआई हेड ऑफिस जो है वो बैठे हुए थे, तो यानी कि वो संडे में भी बैठे हुए हैं। तो हम तो जो है आज कहना चाहिए वर्किंग डे में बैठे हुए हैं। और आज के इस वर्चुअल सीपी मीटिंग में क्योंकि स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑन ऑडिटिंग में है और मैं ऐसे इसको स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑन ऑडिटिंग को हमेशा अपने प्रोफेशन की सोल आत्मा कहता हूं कि ये जो स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं ये हमारी अपनी सोल हैं, तो इनका जरूर हमें नॉलेज भी होनी चाहिए और ध्यान भी रखना चाहिए। तो सबसे पहले मैं वेलकम करना चाहूँगा आज के इस प्रोग्राम के सेशन चेयरमैन श्री प्रमोद चौहान जी, वाइस चेयरमैन आगरा ब्रांच, और सीए आरएस बालाजी, जिनके आगरा ब्रांच तहे दिल स्वागत करती है और बहुत ही शॉर्ट नोटिस पे उन्होंने हमारी जो है कंसेंट दी, क्योंकि अमरजीत चोपड़ा जी इस सेशन को जो है लेने वाले थे, लेकिन उनकी अचानक से तबीयत कुछ खराब होने की वजह से शाम को मैसेज आया। तो ये उस समय हमारे सामने ये स्थिति थी कि अब प्रोग्राम को हम किस तरीके से करें। तो अतुल मेहरोत्रा जी से वाइस चेयरमैन की भी विशेष भूमिका रही और उन्होंने बालाजी सर से बात की और बालाजी सर ने कंसेंट दी। तो बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। और हमारे साथ हमारे सीनियर एग्जीक्यूटिव मेंबर राकेश अग्रवाल जी, सेक्रेटरी गौरव बंसल जी और सुदीप भाई जी इस प्रोग्राम को पूरा कोऑर्डिनेट कर रहे हैं। और जो मेंबर्स जो ज्वाइन कर चुके हैं और जो ज्वाइन करेंगे उनका भी बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। थैंक यू सर। ओवर टू सुदीप जी।
थैंक यू चेयरमैन सर। ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स एक ऐसा टॉपिक है जहां कहीं ना कहीं हमें लगता है कि एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन चाहिए, एक्सपर्ट व्यूज चाहिए। तो आज हमारा सौभाग्य है कि आरएस बालाजी सर हमारे साथ हैं। तो मैं हमारे आज के सेशन चेयरमैन प्रमोद सर का हैंड ओवर करता हूं सेशन फॉर
अतुल मेहरोत्रा सर का भी वेलकम, सर ने ज्वाइन कर लिया है।
नमस्कार जी, नमस्कार नमस्कार
सर। मैं आप ही का
वेलकम सर, नमस्कार
सर। आपका आपके एब्सेंस में हम आपको जो है थैंक्स और वेलकम दोनों कर रहे थे।
अरे so nice of you. I am the part of the Agra branch. I am guest. Yesterday I also, as I told yesterday, I am not a guest. I am a part of the branch. Just
बस सर उसी कॉन्फिडेंस को हमने कल सर इस्तेमाल भी कर लिया, उसी जो है
I just wanted to say only 2 lines for our RS Balaji is there. He has joined.
Yes sir, yes sir.
Okay. I just wanted to say a few words. Dear respected seniors and members, boys and girls. Yesterday there was some trouble with us regarding today's program, because our learned speaker and our mentor and our guide Amarjeet Chopra ji was not feeling well, and at around 7:30 p.m. our branch chairman Sharad Paliwal ji called me about this situation. So I immediately asked him, don't worry, you look your other programs and I will manage something. So I called 2-3 phone calls, and when I called RS Balaji, he was very kind enough. I asked him, sir, आपको मेरी मदद करनी है. You have to help me. We are in some trouble and you have to support and help us. and he immediately agreed. Yes, I am with our fraternity member, and I will be there tomorrow. Though I am stuck somewhere else, but I will manage, and I will be there at Agra branch. So, Balaji sir, I on behalf of myself and on behalf of Agra branch, I am very gratefully thankful to you, sir, for your kind consent, your kind on such a short notice, or even helping us, and so that we are here to listen you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you from the
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for your nice words. Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Atul sir. Atul sir, thank you so much. Now I request Pramod sir to kindly start the session. Pramod sir.
Thank you, Sudeep ji. मेरी am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. तो सभी अपने अतुल मल्होत्रा सर, उनका स्वागत बहुत बहुत। RS बालाजी सर, उनका बहुत बहुत स्वागत। सभी अपने ब्रांच एग्जीक्यूटिव्स और जो भी अपने मेंबर्स इस वेबिनार में जुड़े हुए हैं, सबका मैं स्वागत करता हूं इस सेशन में। हम सब और हम सभी क्यों, सारा विश्व आज एक विशेष प्रकार की परिस्थितियों से गुजर रहा है। हम सब जानते हैं कि एक बड़े संकट का सामना यह पूरी सृष्टि कर रही है, और सामना ही नहीं कर रही है तो हम बहुत सफलतापूर्वक इससे बाहर भी धीरे धीरे करके आ रहे हैं। उन सब परिस्थितियों में ही आज एक विशेष प्रकार से कभी शायद किसी ने कल्पना नहीं की होगी कि इतना हम वर्चुअल सिस्टम्स का यूज करेंगे, और इतना करेंगे कि सीए वीक भी हम एक अपना उत्सव भी हम वर्चुअल तरीके से ही मनाएंगे। लेकिन जैसी परिस्थितियां होती हैं उनके साथ तालमेल हमें बिठाना ही होता है, और उसी के अंतर्गत आज हम इस वर्चुअल तरीके से सीए वीक को मनाते हुए अपनी इस सेमिनार में सभी उपस्थित हैं। अगर हम कोविड की बात करें तो कोविड को लेकर आज जो सबसे बड़ी चर्चा दुनिया में कहीं हो रही है, तो दो चीजों की चर्चा हो रही है। एक, इसके लिए दवाई वैक्सीन कब बनेगी, और दूसरी उसके बाद अगर कोई सबसे बड़ी चर्चा होती है तो इसकी टेस्टिंग को लेकर चर्चा होती है। माने कि इसका टेस्ट कितने समय में हो रहा है, कितना उसकी रिपोर्ट्स जो है कितनी इफेक्टिव हैं, कितनी ऑथेंटिक हैं, ये सब पे चर्चा हो रही है। अनेक प्रकार की टेस्टिंग की टेक्निक इस कोरोना के 2-3 महीने के संकट काल में ही सामने आई हैं। कोई टेस्टिंग 4 घंटे में रिजल्ट दे रही है, कोई 8 घंटे में दे रही है, अभी कोई आधा घंटे के अंदर रिजल्ट देने वाली भी कुछ टेस्टिंग आई है। तो हम देख रहे हैं कि इस बड़े संकट में भी जो रिपोर्ट्स हैं कोरोना की, टेस्टिंग रिपोर्ट्स है, उनका अपने आप में बहुत बड़ा महत्व है। मैंने आज आपको, क्योंकि हम एसेस के ऊपर चर्चा करने के लिए यहाँ पर एकत्र हुए हैं, और एसेस भी वो स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं जो हम, जैसे कि डॉक्टर्स होते हैं और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट को कहा जाता है फाइनेंशियल डॉक्टर, तो फाइनेंशियल डॉक्टर भी जो अपनी रिपोर्ट देता है वो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में होती है। फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स कितने रिलायबल हैं, हमारी दी गई रिपोर्ट कितनी ऑथेंटिक है, ये एंश्योर करने के लिए ही हमारे ऑडिटिंग एंड एश्योरेंस स्टैंडर्ड्स बोर्ड ने ये एसेज जो है निकाले हैं, लागू किए हैं। इसके पीछे मुख्य रूप से देखा जाए तो दो ही पर्पस समझ में आते हैं। पहला कि अपने जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हम तैयार करते हैं, ऑडिट करते हैं, ऑडिट करने से पहले जो स्टेटमेंट हमें तैयार होकर मिलते हैं वो स्टैंडर्ड्स के अंदर हाई क्वालिटी होनी चाहिए, और उनकी क्वालिटी बिल्कुल जो वर्ल्ड वाइड पैरामीटर्स हैं उनके अकॉर्डिंग होनी चाहिए, ये इंश्योर करने के लिए। और दूसरा कारण जो ध्यान में आता है वो हमारे जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हैं, हमारे देश में तैयार किए हुए फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हैं, वो वर्ल्ड वाइड एक्सेप्टेबल होने चाहिए। एक जो जनरली एक्सेप्टेड प्रिंसिपल्स हैं उनके अकॉर्डिंग दे हैव ड्रॉन अकॉर्डिंग टू द जनरली एक्सेप्टेबल प्रिंसिपल्स टू द अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग वर्ल्ड। आज इस कोरोना संकट के समय पे एक जो दूसरी बड़ी चर्चा अपने देश में कम से कम जो चल रही है वो एक आत्मनिर्भर भारत की भी चल रही है। हमें चीन जैसा मजबूत एक सक्षम प्रतिद्वंदी हमारे सामने है, अगर उससे हमें कम्पीट करना है तो टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ साथ हमारा जो फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट, फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम है, फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग सिस्टम खास तौर पे, वो भी हमें उतना ही हाई क्वालिटी और ऑथेंटिक चाहिए जिस पे दुनिया भरोसा कर सके। हमारे जो इंस्टीट्यूट ने, ऑडिटिंग एंड एश्योरेंस स्टैंडर्ड बोर्ड ने जो एसेज निकाले हैं, जो एसेज इशू किए हैं, वो सब इन्हीं बातों को इंश्योर करने के लिए। हम सब जानते हैं कि जब भी कोई इंडिपेंडेंट ऑडिट होता है तो इररेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ दैट कि कंसर्न इज प्राइवेट और पब्लिक लिमिटेड, बिजनेस मोटिव है या प्रॉफिट मोटिव है या नॉन प्रॉफिट मोटिव है, साइज क्या है, लार्जर है, बिगर है, मीडियम है, कुछ भी हो, किसी भी कैसी भी एंटिटी हो, सबके ऊपर ये एसेज एप्लीकेबल है। और ये भी ध्यान रखने वाली बात है कि एसेज सब एक साथ एप्लीकेबल होते हैं, इनमें कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि किसी पर एक होगा दूसरी, सब इंटरलिंक्ड है और सारे के सारे यूनिटी में अप्लाई होते हैं, एक साथ सारे अप्लाई होते हैं। सभी को, सभी का तालमेल एक दूसरे के साथ जो इंटरलिंकेज है वो हमें मेंटेन करनी होती है। तो आज बड़े हर्ष का विषय है, हम सबके लिए बड़े आनंद की बात है कि एक ऐसे प्रखर इस विषय के वक्ता अपने RS बालाजी हमारे मध्य उपस्थित हैं। हमें निश्चित रूप से इन एसेज को लेकर नई जानकारियां, नए तथ्य एक और जहां प्राप्त होंगे, वहीं एसेज को लेकर जो हमारी समझ है उसको हम और डेवलप कर सकेंगे। निश्चित रूप से इस सेशन के बाद मैं ऐसा मानता हूं हम सबकी जो अब तक की जानकारी एसेज को लेकर थी वो और इम्प्रूव्ड होगी और बेटर होगी। इस अपेक्षा के साथ मैं अब निवेदन करूंगा अपने आज के स्पीकर श्री RS बालाजी से कि वे कृपया अपना उद्बोधन, अपना डेलीब्रेशन प्रारंभ करें। बालाजी सर।
Yes, sir. Thank you, the chairman, Agra branch CARC, and thank you, the vice chairman, and also thank you, CA Atul Mehta ji, where he called up yesterday, and a nice friend of mine, and within one day we have become so friends that his humbleness makes me to further learn. So thank you all the branch officials with regard to Agra branch, and also thank you the session chairman CA Pramod Singh Chauhan ji, where you have set up a wonderful platform for आज का title है वो standards on auditing. You have absolutely put up the right words with regard to the standards, or what is expected from a standard and what is expected from a chartered accountant in this regard has been very promptly pointed out by you. Let me also try to go and do justice for the particular time that all our prestigious members are spending in this particular virtual CPE seminars. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Agra branch for organizing wonderful CA week. Yayeshu Supteshu Jagrati, ये हमारा institute का motto है. So Yayeshu Supteshu Jagrati is the one who is awake while others are asleep. When everybody is under cover that they are not in a position to come out and nothing to be done, where the entire world is locked down, still the chartered accountants are always find a way with regard to the hindrance. Yes, there are everybody who are facing difficulty, but to come out of this difficulty and utilize the time available in the best possible manner, always CAs do that particular job very better. And this is an example that your entire Agra team is in a position to organize this CA week on this auspicious CA year, where we are trying to have 1st July, where you have organized sequential programs. And I was just communicating to the chairman that how you are organizing cultural program also or drawing program also in Zoom, and was wondering that it's a great thing that not only the members, हमारे family members को भी say what to say, to integrate this, and then they need to go in for. It's a great job, and I would like to come to Agra branch once all the lockdown or social distancing factors are gone out, so that to meet you in all in person. Let me proceed for this particular standards on auditing, where I'm going to replace the presence of our beloved past chairman, where past president here, where he is considered to be doyen in the standards on auditing, is considered to be an authority in that. So taking a cue from him, let me also go and touch upon the significance of standards on auditing, and we will enshrine, especially with regard to COVID period, what are all the factors that a chartered accountant while doing the financial statement has to take care. There are a lot of inherent problems that could be there while doing an audit in this particular lockdown time, where we may not be in a position to go to the client's place, or we may not be in a position to visit on the physical verification. The data could not be provided to us properly. There are external confirmations may not reach the other party. In that particular situation, how to go and take extra care with regard to, especially on COVID. and also in general with regard to compliance of our duty in the right way as expected by the CA Institute, not only by the CA Institute, but also our regulators. Let me go and have a sequential and chronological approach in this regard. Let me introduce standards on auditing. Why standards on auditing? सर मेरे पास 30 years का experience है. ये क्या standards on auditing? हम sir, in our blood we know auditing. In our blood we know how to do an audit. We know the entity wonderfully. We know what are all the various expectations. So we are doing audits. Wonderful, no problem. Then why this is something called standards on auditing? It is now which creates some problem. Why I need to comply? All this could be a generic question that people may have. In order to answer that, in order to initiate the necessity of this particular standards on auditing, this session will be an eye-opener, that I am sure of it, and we will have a huge and wonderful deliberations in this particular regard. So I would like to bifurcate my entire presentation in such a way that for first half an hour, we will be discussing about the importance of standards and what are all the predominant standards that we need to mainly and predominantly focus upon. Why I have to necessarily comply with standards on auditing. And the second part, I will be discussing about with regard to COVID related aspects or some significant aspects, how I need to go and concentrate, especially with regard to going concern impact. Due to lockdown, there are a lot of economic crisis that is happening around, where there are entities may not have even laborers because of migration with regard to the laborers or lack of raw material. They are not in a position to produce. Their entities entirely locked down for 2 months, 3 months. Their cash flows are getting affected. With regard to an auditor, how to go and approach, what is my role and liability will be taken up as the second part. And as a last one, for 15 minutes, we will be going for some interactive aspects where you may also have a question. If at all you have it, we may have a question and answer with regard to answering that with the panel members also. So with this brief background, I proceed. I once again thank all the office bearers for providing me this nice opportunity to interact with you all people. As our promotion, the session chairman has rightly pointed out one important term. Quality of the audit is what hallmark of the profession. He is rightly corroborating this with the COVID reports that a doctor is going to do, and irrespective of the testing times, their reports are always reliable. Wonderful example he has related. The same thing I would like to go upon. Independence and audit quality are the hallmark of the profession. Not only the users of the financial statements, the entire world is realizing and recognizing this particular fact. The moment chartered accountant has audited and the moment he has signed the financial statements, it is not questionable. When even the regulators believe it, and the entire assessment or even tax prospects, all will be based on this particular audit report, where always institute recognizes this as a two eyes of a chartered accountant. One is independence and the other one is audit quality. In order to ensure proper independence, and specifically with regard to audit quality, these standards on auditing are considered to be something very, very important. Why quality is very important? Because it is expected from various perspectives. One from ICAI and also from other regulators. Today, the chartered accountant who does the activity, the moment he signs the financial statements, it is not only going to have impact on the shareholders, but even the authorities may have a look at it, and there may be a questions with regard to the work or functioning of an auditor. On what basis you have concluded like that? I have stated that the financial statement reflects true and fair view. Wonderful, no problem with regard to financial statements. I have signed it. I have carefully verified it. Now the question is, on what basis you have signed that it is reflecting true and fair view? You prove me with the documentation that you have verified this aspect like that. There are possibilities of questioning to the auditor, and it is now imperative for the auditor to go and comply with standards on auditing. Why? Because of the change in Companies Act 2013. Dear friends, where your experience will be actually counting on the way in which the deliberations are going to happen, where Companies Act 1956, all along up to 2013, the Companies Act 1956 was there. In that Companies Act 1956, sir, anything to be said? Am I audible?
Sir,
yes, sir. Please carry on.
Yeah.
It's all right.
When we take about Companies Act 1956, it talks about the duties of the auditor. It also talks about the responsibilities of the auditor. However, it doesn't talk anything about how an auditor has to do the job. It was so silent. Companies Act 1956 was silent how an auditor has to carry out the job. So only ICA was talking about you need to comply with standards, you need to comply with standards, like that. It was always insisting upon. But Companies Act, which is a regulator for a company, which is on which the entire financial statements are being prepared, was very much silent. However, Companies Act insisted on compliance of accounting standards. So inherently, the chartered accountants are always more fascinated towards accounting standards compliance because Companies Act wanted to do so. When financial statements are not in accordance with accounting standards or generally accepted accounting principles and practices, then true and fair view is not there. I need to go and provide a modified opinion or different sort of opinion in this particular regard. However, the moment Companies Act 2013 got introduced, there are two specific sections that got very influencing impact with regard to the auditor's work. One is section 143.2, the other one is 143.9 in this particular regard. Section 143 by itself is a duties of the auditor, where 143.3 basic reporting responsibilities and 143.1 exceptional reporting, including true and all is section 143. What are all the various duties of the auditor with regard to reporting are specified, where they have specifically mentioned that the auditor providing an opinion on the financial statements has to necessarily consider accounting and auditing standards. Now they have included. Previously, it was only with accounting standards. Now they have included auditing standards. Not only that, section 143.9, which is again an emphasis point that which specifically talks about the auditor shall comply with auditing standards. It is a state one line. The auditor shall comply with auditing standards, a state responsibility targeted to the auditor. So what will happen if they don't comply with standards? It may be, leave about ICAI, ignore about ICAI. My Companies Act says that any of the non-compliance with regard to any of the provision from an auditor's perspective, say from example with regard to appointment or disqualification or remuneration or duties non-performance or excessive utilization of powers, misuse of powers, all that will be treated as a non-compliance of auditor with regard to Companies Act. Now it also includes non-compliance of standards on auditing. A simple letter can be drafted by the MCA, related MCA, and then sent to the auditor. Dear Chartered Accountant, you have signed these financial statements. Please prove that you have complied with 143.9 requirements. That's it, one line letter. They need not do anything investigation. They just send, please prove that you have complied with, like that. They may even send a letter to that. We are bound because we are appointed as per Companies Act and we need to do this particular audit in compliance with that. So it is now more imperative. And also there is something called as NAFRA, which is a National Financial Reporting Authority, the government agency which is into monitor and review the work performed by chartered accountants. Now the liability is now exactly shifted from the chartered accountants reporting perspective, because I need to go for a lot of complaints because I am more reliable is what the world believes. So we always uphold our quality. We always do the audit in the proper way. Based on experience, you might have done a wonderful job. The problem with regard to Indian chartered accountants when we compare with international firms, when we compare with multinational firms, is though we might have done our audit with all proper care and caution, when it comes for proving that whether we have done it with care and caution, we lack certain aspects with regard to documentation. That is a fact. Where Institute also recognize this fact. That's why we have something called as peer review board, where another chartered accountant will come and review the work done by practicing unit, and also quality review board, where there are random sampling can be taken with regard to our audit function. Even our code of ethics says, when I don't comply with the way in which generally accepted auditing standards, when we don't comply with, then there are possibilities of a disciplinary action against the member. Why after performing huge work in that, why we need to go for certain non-compliances, or we are unable to prove that we have not done, why we need to suffer that? We are all doing a great job. We need to just add some more tips. It's like cherries in ice cream. Irrespective of our hard work, we are engaging our team. We are training our audit team to do a proper audit. We know the client wonderfully. Even though client may not be aware, where we may be educating them to comply with a lot of good work, and we are always ensuring that proper taxes are being collected and paid to the departments. We are all acting as a very good brand ambassador with regard to compliance and quality. The problem is we need to prove ourselves with regard to that. For that, our standards on auditing will always help us. Why standards on auditing is because the standards on assurance engagements, auditing is an assurance service. That's why our board is called as Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. Automatically, there is an assurance to the users that they rely. Two types of financials, unaudited financials and audited. When you place, banker will always go for audited. My shareholders will always go for audited. My income tax authorities will always go for audited. So it is all audited financial statements which is relied on. So that much of responsibility is also added upon to the auditors here. Where the framework of assurance engagements is dividing activities done by a chartered accountant into two types. One is assurance services, the other one is related services. What do you mean by related services? Just a compilation job. I don't do any assurance service. Say for example, one fixed asset compilation. The entity may be having fixed asset, but they may not have fixed asset register. They approach a chartered accountant, sir, please compile fixed asset register, tag it to me, and then give a register, give it to me. I will pay you 50,000 rupees. I will pay you 1 lakh rupees. Could be an assignment basis where I may be doing it. Or there may be certain entities where they don't know how to prepare Ind AS financial statements or financial statement compliance. They may be coming and approaching the auditor to prepare the financial statements, and that may be a compilation engagement that a person can be doing. It will be treated as a related services. For that, standards on related services shall be applicable. With regard to auditing and assurance services, which is further divided into two types, audit and review of historical financial information, and assurance engagements other than audit and review of historical financial information. With regard to audit of historical financial information, I need to apply with standards on auditing. I'm not going to do audit, I'm just going to do a review engagement. Say, for example, there is a listed entity, quarterly limited review has to be performed, or for a bank, limited review has to be performed. Then it will be a review engagement. That is not an audit engagement where I need to comply with standards on review engagements. And I'm going to do not with regard to audit, not with regard to review. I'm going to do certain other engagements, which is an assurance engagements not relating to audit or review of historical financial information. Then I need to comply with standards on assurance engagements. So what is this other than audit and review? Maybe say, for example, a projected financial statements, or a company may be coming out with a prospectus, or a particular client may want a 1 crore loan from a bank. So he approaches the bank, bank says, they'll go and get a projected financials. So he will be preparing forecast. The next 2 years, we will be making this much of profit, and thereafter this much of profit, audited profits for 2 years, and then projected profits for 3 years. And then he goes and submits, where the banker may not rely on it. You go and get it certified by a chartered accountant in this regard. So it is a future financial. It is not relating to something past. So it will be an assurance engagements that is other than audit and review of historical financials. It is something relating to the future period, could be a projection or a forecast or a prospectus, that I need to comply with standards on assurance engagements. As our Pramodji rightly pointed out, our standards, the Indian standards on auditing are at par with international standards, because there are cross-border transactions are happening. From India, I'm making investment in Singapore. From Japan, they are making investments in India. From Canada, they are making investments in India. So all over the world that we are in a position to speak and we are in a position to translate, all could be because of same objectives. The way in which accounting is happening, the way in which auditing is happening is at par with international levels. So we need to necessarily comply with standards on auditing, which is as required by ICAI, which is also as required by the Companies Act in this particular regard. How standards on auditing compliance will be made? Sir, what is the standards on auditing to be complied? What are all the standards on auditing to be complied? I am doing my job properly. There is a manufacturing entity. I am sending my audit team properly. They are doing their work properly. I review it. I sign the financials. What else you want? In this regard, with regard to standards, audit of financial statement is an assurance engagements, and the same has to be conducted as per standards on auditing. Because even in my auditor's report, I give this particular declaration. It is an open-end declaration that I am giving. It is like a will that I am giving. My entire assets, it is transferred to you like that. A will, I am writing in an audit report that in the auditor's report, auditor has representing that I have complied my audit with regard to standards on auditing requirements like that. I am giving it, disclosing it in the auditor's report phase itself. So mandatorily, I need to necessarily comply this particular standards on auditing. What is the role of standards? It plays a vital role in ensuring quality, audit quality, and also it is as recognized at par with international standards. We need to necessarily go in for. Sir, could be theoretically, you may be saying, practically when it comes for application of standards, how it could be possible? Is it required for small and medium enterprises, husband and wife have a private limited company where I'm doing an audit? Is it I need to go for standards on auditing compliance? Answer is yes. Standards on auditing compliance is mandatory for whatever may be the entity, irrespective of the size and nature of the entity, the auditor, wherever there is an audit that is performed by an auditor, it has to be only as per standards on auditing. In this regard, A to Z aspects in audit is covered, right from engagement letter till your audit report. Even occurring after the balance sheet, there is something called a subsequent events will be covered by the audit standards here. Acceptance of engagement letter till your final report. Many problem with regard to the Indian Chartered Accountants, where the moment the audit appointment is happening, immediately I would be taking up the audit, but there should be something called as engagement letter. Even before going for the engagement letter, I need to communicate to the previous auditor. Out of disciplinary cases, 180 disciplinary cases is because of this particular non-compliance, where I need to communicate to the previous auditor. When I don't do that particular communication, there is a possibility of the previous auditor stating a disciplinary action against the member here. It will be affected under clause 8 of part 1 of first schedule of the CA Act here. So there are other implications also, where there are a lot of formats that have been given and a lot of checklists have been given, including for small and medium practitioners. The institute has taken up this aspect, and then for implementable tools are also available now, where we need to go and necessarily comply with standards on auditing here. There is a simple formula. Auditing standards are most important factor in enhancing and ensuring audit quality. Standard prescribes how to accept engagement, how to conduct engagements, and also how and to whom the reporting obligations are to. Recent past, there are a lot of changes with regard to the reporting way, including inclusion of key audit matter paragraph in the auditor's report, including something on going concern reporting by the auditor in the audit report, including something on other information that is not with regard to financial statements, other than other data that is provided along with the financial statements, the role of the auditor. Like that, there are recent trends or changes that have made in the standards on auditing. We will also be touch upon those aspects as well. They provide consistency in audit procedures, and also reporting could be there. What is the effect on audit work? How standards on auditing will have an impact on the auditor's work? This is what something to be noted very carefully. There is a possibility of misstatement in the financial statement. That could be an error, or that could be a fraud, which creates a misstatement in the financial statements, maybe because of judgments or estimates by the management, or even it could be because of a going concern, wrong evaluation, or that could be frauds in the financial statements, or the way in which I have performed my audit procedures. All this results in one important factor, one important point, something called as audit risk. The risk that an auditor providing an inappropriate opinion in the financial statements when such financial statements contain material misstatements. As an auditor, as per standards on auditing, I am not bothered about every misstatement. Not problem, no problem. I am bothered only about material misstatement. What could be treated as a material misstatement? Material misstatement may be because of inappropriate accounting policy or inconsistency in application of such accounting policy, or even inadequate disclosures will lead to material misstatement in the financial statement. Where even inadequate disclosures, sir, my balance sheet numbers are proper, my P&L numbers are proper, but still will it be becoming a material misstatement? Answer is yes, because even inadequate disclosure, say for example, a related party transaction which is expected to be disclosed is not disclosed, or a huge litigation with regard to a pending legal proceeding against the company, which is expected to be disclosed is not disclosed, will be still resulting in a material misstatement here. All this could lead to audit risk. What is this audit risk? This is having a formula. Audit risk is the risk that an auditor providing inappropriate opinion when the financial statements contains material misstatement, which could be because of three factors. You have something called as inherent risk, something called as control risk, something called as detection risk. Sir, is this theoretical or is it practically we may be in a position to apply this or not? Absolute practical. The moment we comply with standards on auditing, we may be in a position to easily penetrate and swim across these particular aspects. What do you mean by inherent risk? Inherently, there are problems with regard to financial statements. With regard to estimates or judgments could be made. Say, for example, I'm a finance company where there are lending that is happening, huge lending is happening. The possibility of my evaluation with regard to bad debts or provision for bad debts, it is based on my past experience. That could be inherently a problem where my estimations could be wrong, which could create a material misstatement in the financial statements. Or say, for example, there could be a control risk that your client's internal control policies and procedures do not prevent or do not detect material misstatements from happening, errors and frauds from happening, should be something called as control risk. Nothing to do with auditor's perspective here. Both are, even before auditor entering into the entity, these risks are there because a lot of estimates and assumptions are being made, including our depreciation is an estimate. The useful life of an asset we are computing it for 5 years. That could be an estimate here, which is not the fact. So in this particular regard, this inherent risk and control risk put together are collectively called as pre-audit risk. Pre-audit, even auditor before entering into it, there are risks in this particular regard. Pre-audit risk. On the other hand, post-audit risk is something called as detection risk. The failure from the auditor's part because of my inappropriate verification, maybe because of my engagement team not properly done the audit, or I have missed out, or by oversight I might have done the audit not in the way in which it expected. All this could be leading to detection risk. The auditor may be going wrong. This is a predominant cause that I will be going for an inappropriate opinion in the financial statements. What do you mean by inappropriate opinion? Instead of giving that the financial statement do not reflect true and fair view, I might have given financial statement reflects true and fair view. Instead of going for a qualified opinion, I might have gone for a clean opinion in this particular regard. So SA gives me guidance. Standards on audit should not be seen as something imposing responsibilities. Standards on auditing are always helping hand to the auditor, which will help the auditor to easily do the audit proper way, and then also to come out with all the rescue factors. This is the only insurance policy that is available to the auditor. Say, for example, tomorrow somebody complains about the auditor, you have not done your audit properly. There is a huge liability you have to pay. There is an indemnity risk. What is the insurance? What is the insurance company which will come and insure me? Nothing. It is my own standards on auditing will come for your rescue. Nobody else will come for your rescue. I need to prove with the papers that I have complied with standards on auditing. There ends the matter. Even though a fraud not detected by an auditor, no problem. No problem, I have not detected, but still I have done with reasonable care and caution. That itself is sufficient in this particular regard. The moment I comply with standards on auditing. In order to ensure that I need to comply with standards on auditing, there are a formula that is stipulated that basically I have derived this particular formula. It says always contains items to design support the auditor in obtaining reasonable assurance in order to, which is nothing but the auditor to provide sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. That is basically done through a formula. I'll just tell a brief background about how I derived at a formula where I have 2 kids. One is in 4th standard, daughter. The second one is also a daughter. She's 2 years old. When my first daughter was in 2nd standard, there was always complaint from my wife that you are not taking care of the child properly. They are not doing homeworks. Basically, the school's giving homeworks and all is only for the parents, not for the child. So she is not doing maths properly. You are not taking care. You always go and wham around. So please take care of her child. Where she is not concentrating on mathematics homework and all. She is not doing properly. It is daily a headache for me. Like that, my wife complained. I told that no. My wife is also a chartered accountant. I told that you are a chartered accountant. You can very much go and approach in a systematic way so that she learns. Don't go as an imposing factor. You try to help her to do that so that she will understand properly. Like that, I told all Jnan's theory, that's this and all. She told all story and all very good. You come and sit for 1 day homework, then you will understand what is the problem. Oh, no. The 2nd standard mathematics, what is that you are talking about? Simple, no? No, you come for 1 day like that. There was a challenge. Okay, today bet I will come and ensure that my child is doing the maths homework with proper understanding. No problem, without any shouting and all. We will be doing it like that. There was a bet. So my wife is also sitting. I have called my child. Okay, let us do today homework. Appa will take care of your homework. And then first problem, it was a maths note. 5 problems have been given as a homework. 4 plus 4 is equal to dash. Box was there. In that box, number has to be filled up. So 4 plus 4 are very easy, no? You don't worry, child, I will help you. 4 plus 4. You tell me 1, 2, 3, count it. Like that I told. So she told 4 plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pa. Very good, right answer, 8. You fill it up. So she has written 8. Wonderful. Good job. Very easy, no, mathematics? Yes, pa. See, I was just looking at my wife. See how easily I am doing without any shouting and all. The next question is 5 plus 4. So 5, I have shown 4 here. And then she was in a position to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that she counted. Oh, 9. Okay, right answer. Very good. But so simple, pa. Maths is very simple. Wonderful. The next number is a problem. Next number is 16 plus 9 as the number to be added. I was just searching where is 16 fingers, because I have trained that in this question that suddenly 16 fingers, I don't have 16 fingers plus 9 also, where even we can take from food where we may not go for 16 plus 9. So how to educate that particular child in the same way in which I have trained for? No, I was trying to help her, trying to explain her. She was not listening at all. No. Same way you tell pa, like that she was telling, and I was not in a position to explain. My wife was looking at me. I accepted the defeat after 5 minutes of struggle. No, I am unable to explain. You explain. And then my daughter said, Appa, you don't know maths at all. Only Amma will teach, mother will teach properly. Like that, she was taking the help of the mother. She told in a simple way, 16 plus 9. She told 16 in the mind, 9 in the finger. After 16, like that, she told some formula, something like something in mind and something in hand. After that, you need to go in for, like that, she told. So 16 in the mind, after 9, like that, she started 17, 18, 19, like that. He computed and written the number properly. So it was a learning for me. Something in the mind, something in the finger. Where we might have learned mathematics like that only in our 3rd standard or 4th standard, but we don't apply that. Exactly when it comes for standards on auditing, I have such a formula. Something like 2 in the mind, 3 in the finger. That's it. Over. Compliance of standards on auditing is over. What is this 2 in the mind, 3 in the finger? It's an important formula to be carried away by people. What is this 2 in the mind, 3 in the finger is? 2 in the mind is something constant, which will never change with regard to an audit. Whatever may be the entity, it will never change. 2 in the mind. 3 in the finger will always go for a change. With regard to a manufacturing sector, the 3 in the finger will be different. With regard to a banking sector, the 3 in the finger will be different. With regard to a financial sector, the 3 in the finger will be different. But 2 in the mind will be constant. 2 in the mind always, in any audit, the auditor should apply. 3 in the mind, based on the entity, the auditor should go for differentiating, and then he needs to apply 3 in the finger. Let us understand what is the 2 in the mind, 3 in the finger, so that I easily comply with standards on auditing. All the standards on auditing denotes this particular perspective alone. Let us go for that understanding. The 2 in the mind are the SAS requires that the auditor exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism. 2 important factors that is constant always to be kept by the auditor in his mind while doing any audit of financial statements. 2 in the mind and 3 in the finger. The 2 is professional judgment and professional skepticism. What do you mean by professional judgment? Professional judgment in colloquial terms to be meant making informed decisions based on the experience and knowledge that I have acquired, and based on the support given by accounting and standards on auditing. I need to make an informed decision. That is something called as professional judgment. On the other hand, what do you mean by professional skepticism? Professional skepticism basically involves 3 important factors. One is having a questioning mind. Always the auditor should have this particular fact, something called as questioning mind. It is not something suspicious. It is something questioning. It is be aware. That is why I am going for this. I need to identify, understand, and then I need to go for it. Something called as questioning mind. And the second one is being alert to conditions that may indicate possibilities of errors and frauds. The moment there is a possibility of fraud, I need to go for a deeper verification in this particular regard. I cannot keep quiet. And the third one is critical assessment of my own audit evidences, whether whatever the audit evidences that I have collected during my audit, is it sufficient and appropriate or not, has to be evaluated by the auditor. In this case, that will be treated as a professional skepticism. Colloquially, to talk professional skepticism is something called having reasonable care and caution. What is expected from an auditor is just reasonable care and caution. If at all I have applied professional skepticism, if at all I have documented that I have applied professional skepticism, I am out of this all the tangle. No question to be the auditor. In this regard, I am free hand, 2 in the mind. And what is this 3 in the finger? A very good analogy that is used by the session chairman here, like a doctor. Similarly, similar to that of a doctor's work, here also the auditor has to do 3 in the finger, which will be changing from entity to entity. Identify and assess the risk of material misstatement. First of all, you need to go and identify the assess what are all the inherent risk associated, what are all the control risk associated in an entity. It may be because of fraud or error. That understanding can be made only by understanding the entity and its environment, including its internal control. As an auditor, I need to understand the entity, KYC. We all may be doing it wonderfully. Even client may not know about their business. We may be better knowing about that particular client's business. Maybe father might have started that company, and then now father may not be there. Son could have been taken up that entity. There are various factors which is not even known to the son, but the auditor may be knowing it because of its loyal association and a very careful verification perspective from the auditor. Practically, this may happen. So knowledge about the client's business is one of the essential factor. That's why you have something called as KYC, know your customer, is what the primary factor. And I need to understand the entity and its environment, including its internal control. How effective the entity is having internal control. Internal control is the responsibility of the management, and how they have established, designed, implemented, and maintained internal control in this regard has to be evaluated by the auditor. This is the first step. The second step to be done by the auditor as per standards on auditing is, after identifying this, you perform responses to the assessed risk in this particular regard by way of your audit procedures, so that you will be obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. This is exactly like a doctor doing a investigation. Say, for example, I have a stomach pain, go to the doctor. Dear doctor, I have a stomach pain for 1 day. 1 day stomach pain, he will just push it, and then he will say, he will write some medicines. And then if I don't turn back, it is deemed that your pain has gone up. On the other hand, I'm once again going, dear doctor, I'm having severe pain. No, I'm not in the position to manage at all. For the past 6 days, there are severe pain. So what to be done? Doctor will not prescribe immediately medicines. He will be always prescribing you to going for a diagnosis. You please do this particular diagnosis, this verification, this testing, that testing and all. What is this actually doing? It is nothing but identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. What are all the possibilities with regard to the misstatements in the financial statement has to be first diagnosed. Yes, sir, I have identified. After identification, what do you need to do? Prescribe medicines. Based on the evaluation, based on the risk impact, I need to design my audit procedures. I need to plan my audit accordingly, so that I address all those risk factors properly by the auditor. Thereby, through my audit procedures, I will be obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. The term sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is very wide. SA 500 exclusively discusses about sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, how your audit evidence has to be procured, what are all the factors relating to audit evidence. SA 500 is a beautiful standard that talks about that, where sufficiency talks about the quantity and appropriateness talks about the quality with regard to an audit evidence. And any audit evidence we need to evaluate based on the relevance and its reliability. If it is from a relevant source, and if it is from a reliable data, where we may be whether a relevancy with regard to financial statements and with regard to the users, and a reliability with regard to the source of data has to be evaluated, and then I need to go and obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence here. The moment I have obtained it, no problem, I will be going and expressing that opinion by way of an audit report. SA 700 talks about this particular one. There is a latest revision in SA 700, where last year onwards we need to go for a different sort of reporting. Lot of new responsibilities have been included in reporting. Not new responsibilities in auditing. Auditing you are going to do the same way, but the way in which you are going to report got a major change in line with international parlance here. We need to go and draw our opinion and conclusions based on our SA 700 in this particular regard. So I conclude with regard to 2 in the mind and 3 in the finger formula. 2 in the mind, always constant factor, dollar symbol with regard to your Excel. What you need to do is professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit that I need to maintain. And the 3 in the finger is identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement by understanding the entity and its environment, including its internal control, number 1. Based on such assessment, I need to design my audit procedures and perform my audit procedures so that I obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. And lastly, based on that, I need to form an opinion and conclude that opinion by way of SA 700 is what the formula that an auditor has to apply. In doing so, there are certain aspects. This is what the SA 705 that talks about audit opinion, how your audit opinion can be. Financial statement reflects true and fair view, no problem. Unmodified opinion. That is, in all material respects, the financial statements are free from material misstatements. So the financial statements are free from material misstatements. The financial statements are in accordance with financial reporting framework. I go for unmodified opinion, which is also colloquially called as clean opinion, otherwise also called as unqualified opinion. On the other hand, when I am having sufficient appropriate audit evidence to say that there are material misstatements, but that are not spreaded widely, that doesn't have a pervasive effect, I may go for a qualified opinion. Except for this particular component, the financial statement reflects true and fair view. Qualification in my auditor's report. Very carefully to be done by an auditor, whether I need to go for a qualified opinion or clean opinion to be examined properly. If I give a wrong opinion, then it is an inappropriate opinion. It is nothing but an audit risk. Immediate question on the auditor. The second one is something on adverse opinion. When I do have sufficient appropriate audit evidence to say that there are material misstatements and that are also spreaded widely, something pervasive effect, I need to go for adverse opinion, stating that the financial statements do not reflect true and fair view. Say, for example, your depreciation, there are problems. Your interest computation, there are problems. Your provisioning for bad and doubtful debts, there are material misstatements. Your inventory valuation, there are problems. Like that, there are problems everywhere. The problems, the material misstatements are spreaded widely. In this case, what I need to do? I need to first of all discuss with the management, communicate with the management. Dear management, these are all material misstatements that I identified. Please correct it. No problem when the management corrects it. On the other hand, the problem will be the management says, no, my provision for depreciation is right. My provision for warranty is right. Like that, when the management doesn't comply with the requirement of an auditor's requirement, then that particular misstatement will be treated as uncorrected misstatement. That uncorrected misstatement, is it material to the financial statement as a whole or not, to be examined by the auditor? If it is material, the auditor needs to mandatorily go in for modified opinion only. I cannot go for clean opinion in that particular case. Where if I feel that it is spreaded widely, that particular material misstatement, I need to go in for adverse opinion. And lastly, something called as disclaimer of opinion. I don't give opinion at all. Sorry, answer. Something called as disclaimer of opinion. What do you mean by that? When the management restricts me from performing audit, management says, don't send external confirmation, sir. No. Don't send your audit assistants to verification or physical verification. No. We have done physical verification proper. We have taken care of fixed assets. I will not give you fixed asset register. Always this could be a problem. The data that is asked by the auditor may not be provided by the entity. Unless I have been given with information explanations you are not providing, how can I do an audit? 365 days you are doing the transaction, wherein the auditor comes for 30 days and then concludes on the opinion. It's a Herculean task for the auditor's perspective. When that is not cooperated, when I feel that there are restrictions in the scope of audit, and I feel there could be material misstatements that could be having a pervasive effect, then I need to go in for a disclaimer of opinion, stating that, sorry, I am not expressing any opinion at all. Or the books by itself are not available. Say, for example, there is a calamity because of a fire, the books and all is not available. Based on the data available that the finance statements have been prepared, I need to go for disclaimer in the given case. I cannot disclaim on a particular component in the financial statement. I need to go for the financial statement as a whole. So accordingly, I need to go for an opinion. This is basically discussed in SA 705. I need to document with reason what is my audit finding, how I have communicated to the management, how they have responded, what is the conclusion that I have made. At times, management may be right also. So I may be getting clarified in this particular regard. I will document that particular one also in this particular regard, something on different types of audit opinion, that is as per SA 705 here. Practical implication with regard to certain important standards that where I need to mandatorily comply with. All the standards on auditing are very much relevant for doing an audit. However, these standards on auditing will have a huge impact on the auditor's work. The base SA, standards on auditing for all other standards, are SA 200, that talks about overall objectives of the audit and with regard to conduct of an independent audit and compliance with standards on auditing, that is discussed in SA 200. All other standards are also adding feathers to that particular standards. Specifically SA 210, engagement letter has to be drafted. It has to be drafted very properly, that the management will be providing all data. There cannot be any restriction. I cannot detect frauds. Like that, I need to put all the restrictions and covenants, including the inherent limitations and audit fee, including reimbursement of expenses, communication to the previous auditor. Everything can be part of your agreeing the terms of audit engagements, SA 210. Quality control maintenance is on SA 220. Another important factor, another important essay that we need to comply with, SA 240, that is on auditors' responsibilities relating to a fraud in an audit of financial statement. Basically, fraud detection is an auditor's job or not? Never. It is not the responsibility of the auditor. What is expected from me is to verify whether the financial statement reflects true and fair view or not. However, I need to consider the impact of frauds and errors also in the financials. When a fraud has not been detected, I have signed the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view. After that particular audit was signed, there is a government investigation. They identify there is a fraud. First question will be to the auditor. Why auditor has not found out this particular fraud? It is not the responsibility of the auditor to detect frauds. However, it is the responsibility of the auditor to do the audit with reasonable care and caution. Now the question to the auditor will be, why you have not detected fraud should not be the question. How you have done your audit? Have you taken reasonable care and caution? Am I in a position to prove that I have taken reasonable care and caution? If it is in a position to prove, then no liability to the auditor. On the other hand, if I have not done it, then there is a liability to the auditor for not doing the audit in the way in which it is expected to be done. Even NAFRA, your quality review board, your peer review board, everything will be wanting on compliance of standards. Only 240 I comply, automatically I comply with regard to frauds. It talks about two types of frauds. It doesn't talk about very other varieties. As an auditor who is going to sign on the financial statements, I need to bother only about two types of frauds. They are, one is something called as fraudulent financial reporting, that is also colloquially called as window dressing. And the other one is something called as misappropriation of assets. So two types of frauds the auditor has to verify. The auditor has to see its impact on the financials on which I'm going to report. There could be also a management fraud in this particular regard. There could be a related party transaction that could be converted or potential threat for having a related party transactions, a management fraud. So all this I to be discussed by the auditor and complied by the auditor as per SA 240. The next one, SA 250, is an interesting essay. Consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. Should I need to comply with all statutory laws, whether the company has complied with statutory requirements? I am being a statutory auditor. Should I need to verify all statutory compliance? Say, for example, there is a match factory or a firecracker factory, or there is a chemical manufacturing factory where there is an Air Pollution Control Act that says your air pollution level should be only with this. You cannot go beyond this level. Assuming that I am breaching that particular Air Pollution Control Act, or there is something called as effluent treatment. You know Yamuna, you know wonderfully with regard to pollution and effluent, where always there are problems with regard to Yamuna bed, and we need to protect our own national emoluments like Taj Mahal, where in this particular regard there is an effluent treatment which is not proper, and it is mixing with the river, which is prohibited. Whether should I need to verify as an auditor, should I need to comply with this or not? Say, for example, there is a match factory or a firecracking factory where there is a Child Labor Protection Act, where there are child laborers who are engaged in that particular regard. As an auditor, should I need to verify for that compliance or not? Answer is no. Very clear answer is no. As an auditor, the laws and regulations will be divided into two types. One is laws that do have direct effect on the financial statements, and the other one is laws that do not have direct effect on the financial statements. However, compliance of it is very much necessary for the entity to continue its operation. If I don't comply, then it will be under lock and key, shutting down. So in this particular regard, what is my responsibility? With regard to laws that do have direct effect on the financial statements, auditor has to verify for its compliance. On the other hand, with regard to law that do not have direct effect, say for example, Child Labor Protection Act or Air Pollution Control Act in this particular regard, however, compliance of it is very much necessary for the entity to do it. What is the role of an auditor in that particular regard? 250 clearly says, if that particular non-compliance is brought to the notice of the auditor, I need to go for a deeper verification to verify, will it create a material misstatement? Will it create an impact on the going concern? Like that, I need to go for verification if it is something brought to the auditor's attention. On the other hand, with regard to laws that do have a direct effect on the financial statements, say for example, Companies Act, a GST law, or your Income Tax Act, which is directly having an impact, then I need to go for compliance. Here, if something brought to my notice, I may go for deeper verification here. Again, brought to your notice, I cannot keep quiet. I will close my eyes. Someone needs to wake me up. Where at the auditor being reasonable care and caution, I should also go for a little bit of verification in this particular regard. I need to apply certain procedures. Say, for example, you go and review the legal expenses head, so that there are legal expenditure that is incurred by the entity with regard to a case. I need to go and identify what is that particular case, what is the legal litigation, why there is a dispute, is it having an impact on the financials, is it provision has to be made for that, whether disclosures have been made appropriately. Like that, I may be going for an extended verification in that particular case, something on SA 250's compliance. SA 300, planning of an audit. Again, it is based on identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement by understanding the entity and its environment, including its internal control. I need to plan. It's based on my engagement team. I need to go for appropriate planning here, and then I need to execute my audit. 315 is another important standard where I need to prove that I have complied with this 315. 300 and 315 are something base with regard to an auditor's questioning, where how I have identified and assessed the risk of material misstatement has to be evaluated, including internal controls. Specifically, audit in an automated environment. Today, entirely things are happening through systems. Say, for example, bank audit, there is no withdrawal slip at all. There is no check that is there. Everything is an electronic transfer that is happening. My mobile phone is my bank. When everything is in electronic mode, when there are things are automated, with the use of information technology where I perform my audit without audit trail, there is no paper document to prove that this transaction has been taken up. In that regard, what are all the precautions to be taken? How I need to evaluate that particular financials, like that, where SA 315 talks on the internal controls. Even at COVID times, there are possibilities that at times I may not be in a position to go for physical verification. Like for example, physical verification may not be there. I may not be physically present at the time of performing the physical verification because of lockdown restrictions or social distancing factor or containment zone. I cannot move, I cannot travel, travel pass is not there. In that case, what I can do, I can even do through an automated system or through an electronic medium, where there was one at the time of in the beginning April or in the end of March, there was a conference held by IFAC with ICA. In connection with ICA, they had a meeting on standards on auditing and its impact on COVID situations. One of the presenter from Canada, he even told that they have a huge livestock farm, cattle. Say for example, 1,000 cattle are there. In order to count, physical count, what they do, they may even send a drone camera, where through the drone camera, they will be in a position to identify, map it and tag it. Even tagging RFID can be used, or some other technology can be used in this particular regard that is permitted. Is it permitted to have a scanned copy and verify that? Sir, say for example, bank audit has to be done, where the bank, I am not in a position to go, so they have provided scanned copies. Can I rely on that particular scanned copies? Answer is yes. With the help of SA 500 and with the help of SA 315, I may very much understand and I may very much comply with that. Because even my Companies Act permits that. Companies Act section 128 talks about your books of accounts of the company can even be in an electronic form. It need not be in a physical form. Where that is permitted, I may even go in for compliance with standards on auditing as per SA 315 in this regard. The automated environment, extra care to be taken in automated environment. or exclusively designed in SA 315. The next one is on SA 320, that is on materiality perspective. Because as an auditor, I am bothered only about material misstatements. I am not bothered about every misstatement. So what do you mean by materiality? Is it 1 lakh rupees material, or is it 5,000 rupees is material? At times, 1 lakh rupee may not be material. At times, 5,000 may be material. It is based on the judgment of the auditor and also as per the provisions as in SA 320. An information could be treated as a material if its misstatement could influence the economic decisions of the users, then that item could be a material item. 320. 330 talks about how I need to perform my audit procedures. 450 talks about how I need to evaluate the misstatements. There are a lot of misstatements could be there. How I need to evaluate such misstatement, whether it is material or not. What is the role of an auditor to communicate that particular misstatements? 550 talks about specific points relating to related party transactions. Related party transactions are always under watch, under monitoring, either by your accounting standard or by your Companies Act or even by standards on auditing, exclusive standards on related party transaction. It wants 3 aspects from the auditor to be done. Very simple, only 3. Identification, accounting, disclosure of related party transactions. How the entity is identifying, how the entity is accounting, how the entity is disclosing that particular related party transaction has to be verified by the auditor, so that I may be in a position to comply with 550. And specifically with regard to 570, reporting on going concern. That is a matter of concern really. Whether the entity is really a going concern or not has to be evaluated. There are specific items that we need to consider. I will take it up this particular aspect little bit later. And using the work of another auditor, SA 600, basically SA 600 talks about using the work of another auditor. SA 610 talks about using the work of internal auditor. Say for example, a company is having internal audit also. Can I rely on the work done by the internal auditor? Answer is absolutely yes. SA 610 gives me that particular permission. Sir, as an auditor, can I use internal auditor's team to do my job? Say for example, physical verification of fixed asset has to be done. My articled assistants are on leave. I don't have people. My internal auditor team is there. Can I use that particular internal audit team for my performance doing of audit job? Previously, before revision of SA 610, it was not permitted. But after revision of SA 610, using direct assistance of internal auditors are permitted. No problem. Your Companies Act doesn't prohibit in this particular regard. A statutory auditor can take the direct assistance of internal auditor and he can perform that particular activity, permitted in this regard. And recent developments are with regard to 700, new format of reporting. The entire format of reporting got changed immediately. First, I need to go for opinion paragraph, whether the finance statement reflects true and fair view, and I need to always give basis of opinion paragraph. I cannot just like that copy paste the previous auditor's report and then change the year 18, 19 and all. Not possible here, where I need to go for providing this particular opinion by itself as a different way, that is as stipulated by revised SA 700. And also there is an enhanced reporting with regard to key audit matter, enhanced reporting with regard to going concern, enhanced reporting with regard to other information also. That is something interesting. Say for example, in my financial statement, my annual report, 400 pages annual report is there. In 400 pages annual report, 50 pages of financial statements. Balance 350 pages of only reporting about the entity, where the board of directors will be communicating many aspects to the shareholders, maybe management discussion and analysis, CSR reporting, board's performance, other intricacies, other competition or other risk and reward with regard to an entity like that. They may be going for a lot of discussion. Whether my audit report is covering the entire annual report or whether my audit report is only on the financial statements. As we all know, our audit report is confined only to the financial statements. We don't need to verify whether the other data that is provided in the financial statements are proper. I'm not expressing any opinion on that. However, because of the SA 720, where I need to go for verifying whether that other information provided in the audit report, in the financial statements or in the annual report along with the auditor's report, I need to go and verify is there something materially inconsistent or not. Something inconsistent to the financial statements or not has to be read through, and if it is not, no problem. If it is yes, I need to bring it to the shareholders' attention also. It is my responsibility to go through the other information data also. At times, other information may not be provided to the auditor before completion of audit. In that case, what is to be done? In that case, I need to ask for the draft data from the entity. Based on the draft, I need to verify, and then I need to report to the shareholders also. When the entity does not provide me draft data, then I need to report that particular fact also in the auditor report itself under other information paragraph. Apart from it, there are legal and regulatory requirements also that is there. Something on CARO, where CARO 2016 has to be reported for the current year, and for the subsequent year, we need to go for CARO 2020. Where CARO 2020 was originally issued and made applicable, but as a COVID-19 relief measure, MCA has notified that postpone the application for another year. So the current year, for the financial year reporting on 2019-20 for the audit reports prepared, I need to comply with CARO 2016 requirements, and then auditor has to report on the CARO 2016 aspects. CARO 2020 guidance is shortly going to be released by ICAI. I think they are finalizing. Maybe by the CA day, they may be even coming out with the guidance note on CARO 2020, which can be used by the people for the subsequent year's financial statement verification. Key audit matter is another important one where the auditor has to go in for. Key audit matter is out of the matters that are communicated to the management, which is of a most significant aspect with regard to audit and auditor's work, which is got to be brought into the shareholders' knowledge and information. The auditor will be bringing those information to the auditor, to the shareholders' perspective, that is on key audit matter as per SA 701. It will talk about what is the matter that is communicated to the management, which is considered to be the most complex in the entity, and what is the audit procedure applied by the auditor to verify the same, and how I have concluded like that. I need to document, I need to present it to the shareholders here. Where it is, as of now, it is applicable only for listed company audits, not for all other audits. Key audit matter has to be included. However, if the auditor feels that I should include a key audit matter, he is at the liberty to include that key audit matter, no problem here. However, the SA 700 revision is applicable to all the entities, whether it is a private, public, listed, unlisted. For all entities, we need to go in for revised SA only. Now we need to go and touch upon a specific aspect with regard to SA 570 going concern, because 570 is a revised SA, and it is also important to understand this SA, especially at the COVID times, where there are economic crises, where we don't know about the future, and entities are always at a shutting down mode, where whether going concern is really affected or not has to be evaluated. If it is affected, then there is a difference of role to the auditor. I'm all talking from the auditor's perspective in order to protect myself. What is the change? The change is a massive one where we need to understand in concept as well as in reporting. What is the change in the concept? We all know going concern is a fundamental accounting assumption. Nobody denies that. It's a fundamental accounting assumption. Going concern, consistency, accrual are the three fundamental accounting assumptions is what the thought process, even accounting standard 1 talks about it. Even auditing standard SA 570 pre-revised recognizes that particular fact. However, SA 570 revised says going concern is no longer an assumption. It is the basis of accounting. Please understand, the base on which my accounting is done is absolutely based on the going concern. It is going concern is valid. That's why I am preparing like this. If the going concern is not valid, I cannot prepare my accounting like this. I need to go for a liquidation basis. I need to go for throwaway basis. I cannot go for historical basis. So going concern is a basis of accounting is what the change that got made in SA 570. Because of this change, what is having an impact? It is now the responsibility of the management to evaluate whether the entity is really a going concern or not. And after evaluation, management has to prepare the financial statements based on it. It is now the responsibility of the auditor to evaluate whether management has done their assessment properly and are you agreeing with that particular assessment. Now there is a state responsibility to the auditor. Do you agree with the going concern basis of accounting? Is there something material uncertainty? Is there any indicator that is going to affect the going concern? The auditor has to report on that particular item also. Where going concern is the basis of accounting, where the financial statements are prepared on the assumption that the entity is a going concern and will continue its operation for a foreseeable future. What do you understand by the term? It is of a further period of 12 months, at least for a period of 12 months from the date of financial statement, something called as foreseeable future, where the auditor needs to go for reporting in this particular regard, where it is considered that the entity has neither the intention nor necessity to liquidate its operation. So it will be continuing. So there is no problem with regard to existence and continuity. The entity shall continue is what the assumption, or it was the basis on which your entire accounting has been done. But if it is not so, the auditor has to go and report in this particular regard. Based on SA 570, that is also the director's responsibility statement disclosure under section 134(5) of the Companies Act. Now, based on SA 570, I need to identify, is there any material uncertainty? What do you understand by the term material uncertainty? Material uncertainties are those events or conditions or transactions that may cause significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern. That should be disclosed in the financial statement. If that is not disclosed in the financial statement, then there is a problem. Say, for example, there is a huge litigation, there is a pollution control issue, and there is a 100 crore penalty has been levied by the Pollution Control Board on that particular entity. The company is litigating that. It is pending at the Supreme Court. Suddenly, Supreme Court gives a decision against that particular company. It is a material uncertainty where I may not be in a position to repay the entire 100 crores. It could influence the going concern assessment and going concern impact, where the entity has to go and evaluate, are you a going concern or not? If not, go for different reporting. If yes, say how I am a going concern. Prove that how you are a going concern. I have further resources so that I may go for paying that and still I may operate. I have a huge cash. I have a huge money that is raised now from the public. I may be in a position to utilize. I'm going to expand like that. I have opportunities. Then you may be a going concern. Otherwise, your going concern could be likely to get affected, where it could be treated as a material uncertainty. This material uncertainty is divided into different perspectives. Financial parameters, operational parameters, other parameters and all. They have divided this particular impact on the going concern here. Say, for example, the fixed term borrowings which are approaching maturity without realistic prospectus to repay by the entity will be an impact that could create on a going concern. Say, for example, the company has borrowed debentures and now it is the time for the company to redeem these particular debentures. But however, I don't have money to repay that particular debenture holders. In that regard, it may lead to insolvency. It may lead to other problems with regard to an entity. Fixed term borrowings approaching maturity without realistic prospectus to repay, or solvency or liquidity requirements for the financial institutions, where there are parameters, CRR parameter, or other liquidity ratios that is to be complied with, where the entity is not in a position, then the license could have been cancelled in this regard. On a substantial operating loss, we are not talking about normal loss, because there could be profits, there could be losses also. Now we are talking about substantial operating loss, which could influence the entity's continuity, could be a factor which could be a material uncertainty. All these items are only red flags. The moment it is there, going concern is affected, like that I may not conclude. I need to go and evaluate whether going concern is really affected or not, and then I need to go for reporting here. Or inability to pay creditors on due dates, or loss of a major market, which is because of a technology or change in the people's mind. My market has gone where there is a huge change in technology. I have not embraced that particular technology. I am outdated. My customers are lost. So loss of major market, or say, for example, loss of major market could also influence a loss in a contract. I'm having a huge contract, and then through that contract, my entity was doing a lot of activities. That contract I have lost. Say, for example, government has debarred me from performing that particular activity. Then the going concern is fully affected in this regard. Shortage of key raw material, specifically in COVID times, there could be possibility that my raw materials, because of transportation issues, my raw materials may not come and reach. Because of no raw material, I may not be in a position to produce. Because of non-production, my financial numbers are affected. It could lead to going concern impact on the entity here. Huge labor turnover. Exactly, entire India is facing this particular problem because of the migration issues. There are a lot of labor turnover that happened, and states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, or even Delhi are hugely impacted with this particular labor turnover, which could be leading to a going concern impact here. Or it would be an indicator where I am not solving this issue, then my entity could be a going concern, maybe affected in my particular entity, or pending legal proceedings and claims from which are something substantial. Say for example, there are a lot of cement manufacturing companies are facing this particular problem, where they have become a cartel. They made a cartel, and then they have hiked up the prices like anything, and then the Competition Commission of India has imposed a huge penalties with regard to a lot of cement manufacturing companies, and the case is now pending with Supreme Court. Or you take a good example of TRAI, which is imposing money to be collected from telecom companies. Your Jio, your Airtel, your Vodafone and all has to pay that particular value, and it is now pending with Supreme Court. Assuming that there is a legal proceeding and it is against that particular company, your going concern could have been directly affected in this particular regard. Now it is the responsibility of the auditor to evaluate whether management has done that particular evaluation properly and whether going concern is really valid or not. I can take an example of a Jet Airways, where there are problems with regard to Jet Airways reporting, and the board of directors convinced the auditors that they are still a going concern entity. Because I have money, I have all other loyalty programs, Jet Miles. Say for example, a frequent flyer will be given with the Jet Miles. I am keep on, say for example, I traveled 1,000 miles, then 1,000 points will be given to you. I will encash that particular 1,000 points. So Jet Airways said that my customers are having loyalty programs, so they will be encashing. Through that, I will be getting business. Through that, all this money problem and all will be getting solved like that. They are in a position to convince the auditor. However, after 2 months of signature of the auditor, the going concern got affected. Immediately, the company went in for shutting down its entire operations here. So, going concern impact and its verification is having a lot of impact and influence on the auditor's aspect. All these are all very good parameters or indicators for the auditor to verify whether really going concern impact is there or not. The moment it is there, I need to go for a deeper verification, and then I need to evaluate, have audit evidence to prove that going concern is affected or not. Not only that, there is a huge change in reporting. What is the change in reporting? Instead of earlier me providing an emphasis of matter paragraph, I can no longer go with an emphasis of matter paragraph. Previously, when there is some material uncertainty was there, just a minute. Sorry. Previously, when there are material uncertainties, the responsibility of the auditor to include that in emphasis of matter paragraph and give clean opinion go away. Now, as per revision of SA 570 and also by SA 700, you cannot include an emphasis of matter paragraph. You need to include a specific matter, something called as material uncertainty relating to going concern. Like that, in my audit report itself, I need to include a paragraph. Material uncertainty relating to going concern, how the company has addressed, where that material uncertainty has been disclosed properly, how I need to go for reporting. If it is not disclosed properly, how I need to go for reporting. Because of the material uncertainty, going concern is affected, how I need to go for reporting. If going concern is not affected, how I need to go for reporting. Like that, there are different scenarios where we need to go and apply. Audit job is not as easy as we think, and especially the expectation from the regulators and the reporting responsibilities are something manifold to the auditor. Then we need to just comply with this so that my responsibilities are taken care. I need to comply with SA 570 in this regard. Let us have a discussion on this. Can it be a key audit matter? It cannot be. I will come back for this particular point. We'll go and analyze the impact on going concern and impact on the auditor's report, how I need to go for it. Where there is a material uncertainty is there, but the entity has made an adequate disclosures, it doesn't affect the going concern point, no problem with regard to going concern. How the auditor has to report, even though it has been adequately disclosed, the auditor has to include a separate section in the auditor's report under the heading material uncertainty relating to going concern. Like that, I need to go for reporting. I need to report the fact, draw the attention to the shareholders. What is the disclosure paragraph in which the particular material uncertainty is disclosed by the management, and how going concern is not affected by the evaluation of the management. Like that, I need to go for reporting that way, and then I can give a clean opinion, no problem. I can say financial statement reflects true and fair view. On the other hand, when there is a material uncertainty exists, it is not affecting going concern. Our material uncertainty is there, but inadequate disclosures made by the entity. That is a change. Material uncertainties character by itself is in such a way that it is to be disclosed in the financial statement. If it is not disclosed in the financial statement, it will lead to inadequate disclosure. It will also lead to material misstatement in the financial statement. When the financial statement contains material misstatement, I cannot go for clean reporting. I need to go for qualified opinion or adverse opinion only. Please be very clear. When there are material uncertainty that is not disclosed by the entity properly, going concern is not affected. Irrespective of the fact, you need to go for modified opinion only, either to go for a qualified opinion or adverse opinion based on the pervasiveness, based on the spreaded reason of that particular impact on the financial statements, and disclose the fact of inadequate disclosures in basis of opinion paragraph. And the third point is, when going concern by itself is inappropriate, going concern is affected. In that particular case, how I need to proceed for? When the going concern is affected, then the financial statements are prepared on the basis of going concern. Then I need to go and provide adverse opinion only. No other alternative available to the auditor. When going concern got affected, however, the financial statements has been prepared on the going concern basis of accounting. Management doesn't change it. Management says, I will ignore auditors' contention in this regard. Then I cannot go for qualified opinion, clean opinion, disclaimer opinion like that. I need to go and provide the adverse opinion only, that the financial statement do not reflect true and fair view, like that the auditor has to report in this regard. Also, I need to report the fact of how I have evaluated, what are all the material uncertainty identified, how it has been reported by the entity, and how I have reported like that to be documented by the auditor here. There are possibilities. Sir, a company which is not having any problem, should I need to still talk about material uncertainty and going concern? Need not. Your audit report can be silent in this regard. However, in the auditor's responsibility paragraph, I need to include that particular aspect of evaluating the going concern. Preparing the finance statement on the going concern is the responsibility of the management. Auditor's responsibility is to evaluate like that. I need to go and include a paragraph in the auditor's report, that is as per revised SA 700 here. So the impact on going concern and evaluation of the going concern is really a Herculean task for the auditor. Based on the experience and based on other factors, the auditor has to judicially needs to evaluate whether going concern impact is there or not, and I need to report accordingly. Not only reporting, documenting all the perspective of audit has to be also be done by the auditor here. SA 230 talks about documentation. Wonderful essay. SA 230 says how my documentation should be. How your documentation should be, they have creating a notional figure, someone called as experienced auditor. If at all you are giving this particular audit documentation to an experienced auditor who is not having prior knowledge on this particular entity, but having good sound understanding of audit, if you give this data, he should be in a position to understand what you have performed. He should be in a position to realize how you have concluded. That way your audit documentation should be prepared, is what the requirement of SA 230. It is like your paper should speak. Always there is a problem, sir. We may do the audit properly, but my engagement team may be going on leave. The person who was the engagement partner, or the person who was the audit manager of that, or the senior person who was there, is keep on going for another audit. We are not doing that particular compilation. What I need to do? 60 days timeline is given by SQC1. Standards on Quality Control gives 60 days time for compiling the financial final audit report for that particular audit assignment. Within 60 days, you should go and comply that. And I need to retain that particular working papers for a period of 7 years in this particular regard. Previously, it was 10 years. The council has reduced that particular timeline from 10 years to 7 years. It can be even in computerized format. It can be in a computerized format, no problem. It need not be only in physical form. It can be even in an electronic form, which is accepted in this particular regard. That's it on SA 570. I have another 15 minutes time where I can spend on audit evidences, and then balance 15 minutes time we may be having a discussion on the questions or queries that you may have. the panel discussion we can go in for. SA 501, SA 500 is a base standard that talks about audit evidence. SA 501 talks about specific considerations. 3 items specifically you need to consider with regard to audit evidence like that they have gone for. What are the 3 items? One is existence and condition of inventory with regard to an audit and auditor's job. Second one is completeness of litigation and claims. And third one is presentation and disclosure of segment financial information. The segment financial information is only for financial reporting framework compliance, may not be relevant for every audit. It is only for those entities which is having different segment and segment reporting is applicable, they need to go for compliance. And the SA do not give any specific responsibility. However, with regard to the first item and second item, there are specific points that we need to ponder upon. Existence and conditions of inventory. Why inventory is given this much of importance is because always for every entity, inventory is considered to be a predominant component in the financial statement. Because you have inventory in the raw material stage, you have inventory in WIP, you have inventory in finished goods even goods might have been sent to my godown or to my agent where goods sale or approval basis I might have there stored. It all will be forming part of my inventory, which is having a predominant component in the financial statement. Because the valuation of which would easily influence the numbers in the financials. Your profit number can be just like that played or manipulated with regard to inventory valuation. Your cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower, where what is your cost, there may be an inflation with regard to the cost computation. Or your net realizable value might have been arrived in a different, it's also an estimate in this particular regard, net realizable value. Or there could be a non-moving stock, obsolete stock, but still company will be valuing it at the right value. It is actually wrong. I need to provide for that particular entire stock. Or a WIP stock. Say for example, if the stock is in WIP 1, the value could be 10 rupees. If the stock is in WIP 3, the value could be 20 rupees. So because of the value addition that is happening in work in progress. So the company may say an item which is actually in WIP 1 may say it is in WIP 3 so that the value can be increased and inflated so that your profit numbers are inflated. Auditor has to be very careful and cautious with regard to verification and evaluation of existence and condition of inventory. Even CARO 2016, there is a specific responsibility of the auditor. The question on CARO 2016 is whether management has conducted physical verification of inventory at reasonable intervals. If it is so, is there any material discrepancy identified? If it is so, how it has been adjusted in the books of accounts like that. There are sequential questions asked to the auditor. It is my specific responsibility to go and verify with regard to inventory. Specifically, with regard to inventory, where physical verification could be a problem. Even COVID times, physical verification could be a problem, where AA Auditing and Assurance Standards Board came out with an advisory note in this particular regard, how we can go for physical verification. Even electronic mode of physical verification is possible. It will be a mode of acceptance from the auditor's perspective with regard to audit evidence here. Basically, the responsibility lies with the management. Auditor is not responsible. However, SA 501 says, wherever practicable, wherever the inventory valuation is significant, it is the necessary for the auditor to be present at the inventory here. I need not do inventory verification. Let the management conduct, let me observe is what the expectation from the SA here. Whether inventory is continuously done, whether perpetual inventory basis they have verified, or periodic verification has to be done, where the auditor has to apply with the provisions of SA 500 and 501. 500 talks about 8 specific methods through which your audit evidence can be obtained. Something on inspection, inquiry, observation could be performed by the auditor, or recalculation could have been made, performance, external confirmation, written representation, even analytical procedures. All these are all part of my audit procedures. Your inspection and observation are giving good strength to your audit evidence with regard to physical verification. As per SA 501, the process to be noted is I need to be present at the time of stock taking, observe the procedure performed by the management. Here, it is the responsibility of the auditor to present in person or through his engagement team. It is not required that the signing partner should be there. It is the engagement team. If it is there, that is sufficient. Also, it is the responsibility of the team to go for inspection with regard to inventory, perform test count. 100 gunny bags are there. Each bag is 100 kg, like that they say. It's a sugar factory or it's a tea processing factory. They say that They have 100 bags of gunny bags, each 100 rupees, 100 kgs. So they may just like that count, okay, this row 10, that row 10, so 10 into 10, 100 bags, like that they may go for it. Where I may not be in a position to accept immediately, I may even go for first test count, or I may go for asking the entity to go for weighing that particular item as a sample basis, and then I may also verify whether the product is same or not, like that, so that there are frauds and errors are minimized in this particular regard. Also, the estimations that is made by the management with regard to WIP or slow moving or non-moving stocks has to be evaluated by the auditor. Say, for example, I am an auditor in a crude petrol refinery crude, where the refinery stock will not be stored at a particular point. It will always be flowing 24/7. There may be processing that is going on. In that regard, how my stock can be verified? Or there are huge tankers. Through tankers, my stock are being moved. How to evaluate that? There may be dip rods that may be used, or weighment of that particular tanker could have been used. So all these are all, there are estimations that is involved. Whether such estimation is proper or not has to be evaluated by the auditor. And auditor has to also apply cutoff procedures when inventory is performed in a certain other date other than the financial statement date. I need to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Even there are possibilities that as on 31st March, I am not in a position to present. No problem. At a subsequent day, you perform your inventory verification and you do the reconciliation with regard to the movement. Say, for example, 31st of March, I am not in a position to come around and do the verification. Maybe on 15th April, you do it and you monitor the interdays, whatever the transactions happened from 1st April to 15th April, so that you can arrive back that particular number to evaluate whether your financial statements are appropriate or not. One important point to be noted is, sir, because of this lockdown, I have not verified physical inventory. I have not done that activity at all. Can I escape? Can I say that I have not done? Not possible at all. Auditors' attendance at physical inventory may be impracticable, could be because of factors such as nature and location of the inventory. Say, for example, the inventory is held in a remote location that I may not be in a position to reach, or matter of general inconvenience to the auditor. These are not sufficient to support a decision of the auditor that attendance is impracticable. So I have left over that activity. Like that, I cannot say I need to perform alternative audit procedures. Document what you have performed in this regard. Say, for example, subsequent sale made by the entity of that particular product by itself is an evidence that that product was there on that particular day here. That could be an alternative source of information, a corroborative source of information that the auditor may seek of. The extent of coverage of physical verification with value, the instructions given by the management to staff and instruction given by the auditor to the engagement team, and then how the inventory valuation has been done, physical verification sheets with regard to reconciliation and all can be taken up. All these are all documenting factors for the auditor. Where extract of the copy of the stock statement vis-a-vis the book ledgers and the physical statement can be taken up as an audit evidence. If at all there are material discrepancies identified, say, for example, my book stock says 5,000 numbers, physically there are only 5 numbers. Maybe there are part number variation, or maybe really there are problems, or there are problems with regard to valuation here. How I have addressed that has to be documented, and action taken and resolving that particular item, including CARO reporting consideration, should all be considered by the auditor and documented by the auditor in this case. There are specific aspects of reporting under COVID here, where going concern and the key consideration for the auditor, just now we have discussed, we need to be very careful. Physical verification of inventory, especially with regard to COVID times, we need to be very careful, key consideration that is issued by AASB. All these are all advisories issued by AASB. And auditors report with regard to subsequent events and key audit matters has to be reported by the auditor also. We will go for reporting perspective. Sir, I want to give my report. What is the specific points to be noted, especially with regard to COVID-19 situation? I need to provide only modified opinion as per SS 705 in case of improper accounting, or in case of inadequate disclosures, or if at all I am unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, I need to go for modified opinion only. With regard to going concern impact, sometime back we have seen, validate the basis of accounting, comply with SA 570, provide adverse opinion if going concern is not valid. If going concern is valid but there are material uncertainty, disclose the fact in the auditor's report itself based on the reporting by the entity here. And key audit matter paragraph. Sir, whether COVID point should be included as a key audit matter? Need not be. COVID-19 by itself is not a key audit matter to be included in the key audit matter paragraph. The objective behind this key audit matter paragraph by itself is to bring it to the shareholders' attention. Users of the financial statement has to be aware about a complex issue that we are facing, about a complex issue that is involved in verification perspective, has to be reported to the shareholders. Shareholders should not think it's just a cakewalk that the auditor does the job like that. They cannot think. There are a lot of complex aspects involved in estimation by the management and evaluation by the auditor. Those aspects to be reported in key audit matter. When the auditor feels this COVID-19 issue is also a key audit matter because there are impact in the audit verification and audit process, he may also give that particular aspect as a key audit matter, and not mandatorily required here, only required in case of listed entity audits here. If key audit matter can be placed out of the matters already communicated to those charged with governance, then only I can issue this as a key audit matter. Otherwise, I cannot go for key audit matter paragraph reporting here. Also, SA 706, something on emphasis of matter. Can I give us what is emphasis of matter? Emphasis of matter is something, a matter that is already disclosed in the financial statement. However, the auditor feels that it is significant and fundamental to the understanding of the users. In order to draw the user's attention, I am putting it in my auditor's report. Dear shareholders, please refer note number 32.3. 32.3 may be a small note. Nobody may be in a position to read it, but it is something fundamental. So I thought that it is to be included for drawing the user's attention in this particular regard, which is fundamental to the user's understanding. I may include it in my emphasis of matter paragraph. The moment audit report says emphasis of matter paragraph, dear users, caution is, your attention is drawn to 34.2. Immediately everybody will be going to note number 34.2 and then read what is that particular aspect here. That is the intention of emphasis of matter. Emphasis of matter is not a modification to the auditor's report. It is just to draw the user's attention. This has been given in this regard, where matters already disclosed in the finance statements to be there, and it can be included to report a significant subsequent event also. As on 31st March, no problem at the date of financial statement, but subsequently there are problems that could even be treated as an emphasis of matter. Subsequent events can be further into two types. One is adjusting event, the other one is non-adjusting event. Non-adjusting event, no problem. Adjusting event, I need to go for considering its impact on the financial statements and reporting by the auditor here. So these are all very specific and minute aspects involved in reporting from the auditor's end, so that I will be doing my job properly, and also I will be recording that I have done my job properly. I am having a peaceful sleep in this particular regard. Nobody can question. Anybody questions, my papers will come and speak how I have done my audit. The indemnity with regard to my performance is my standards on auditing compliance. That's it with regard to my presentation today, and I thank once again all my seniors in this particular regard. Honorable CA Atul Malhotra ji, the member CARC, Regional Council member, our session chairman Pramod Singh ji, our Sudeep Kumar ji, Gaurav sir, and honorable chairman of Agra batch, all the related officials, including the information technology supporters who are actually providing, and not but my very own participants. In spite of this COVID situation, you are having this much of what to say, the liking towards this particular standards on auditing, and your presence is what our motivation. Your experience, you might be having all these scenarios you might have encountered, but still I'm just tipping this particular expectation from the regulator, including NAFRA here. So thank you one and all for this nice time of 2 hours. When time permits, definitely we will come and meet in Agra. Thank you, sir. Over to Pramod sir.
Thank you, बालाजी. अगर आज हम सेमिनार में होते तो आज मैं अभी सभी ऑडियंस से कहता आपको एक स्टैंडिंग ओवेशन देने के लिए. इतना शानदार तरीके से आपने सारा कोविड सिचुएशन से लिंक करते हुए, और जो भी आज कोविड सिचुएशन को लेकर रेलेवेंट चीजें हैं एसेज में, वो सब इलेबोरेट आपने, यू हैव elaborated very wonderfully. So I can ask for the big round of applause from the audience. You can applaud from your place only. And now I can ask any questions if our audience have. Then you can ask to the our learned faculty, R.S. Balaji. So,
Balaji sir, I have a question.
Yeah,
Please, sir. Yes.
Yeah, Balaji sir, actually, I just wanted to ask that as far as SA 570 is concerned, which is dealing with going concern. So, if the going concern is being affected, and then the accounting has to be done by the firm on a liquidation basis.
True.
So, do we have any guidance note for that accounting, how that accounting should be done, and how what should be the situation, and how the auditor should fulfill his responsibility in that particular case?
Yeah, very relevant point that you are raising, sir. When going concern is affected, how it is to be reported is not specifically directed by a standard, because standard always assumes that your going concern basis of accounting is valid and on which your finance statement are prepared. In an exceptional situation where going concern is not valid, you need to go in for a liquidation basis and throwaway basis is what the guidance provided by the standard, but it doesn't talk about on what basis that values can be taken up. There is no, because it involves accounting impact. So it is not only auditing impact, it is primarily an accounting impact. So as of now, internationally also, we don't have such a specific standard or a specific accounting standard that where going concern is affected, how we need to go in for. We may be even applying a special purpose framework or a specific financial reporting framework to go for addressing. And if the auditor is satisfied, even I can give a clean opinion. When, say for example, to further elaborate on your example, going concern got affected, entity accepted going concern got affected, and they prepare on a liquidation basis, I need not give a modified opinion. I can still give a clean opinion, but I need to very much ensure that I am giving this fact to the shareholders, very adequate disclosures in this regard.
Sir, my question is how the auditor will be satisfied that accounting has been properly done on liquidation basis, where I am not having a standard to check whether the liquidation method has been duly followed or not.
We need to go in for insolvency impact only.
Yeah.
Where insolvency impact, how it is to be, where they throw away prices. Again, it is based on the management's estimation. What will be the assets that will be realized? Say, for example, you are a resolution professional, we will be going for evaluating what will be the assets that will be realized and liabilities that will be settled off. That is to be taken care by the entity, and I need to evaluate on that particular basis, sir.
Okay, thank you.
तो राकेश नारायण सर ने हैंड रेज किया हुआ है, तो राकेश नारायण सर.
So please unmute yourself first. You may be mute. Please unmute yourself first.
राकेश नारायण सर. शायद वो अनम्यूट नहीं कर.
शरद जी, क्वेश्चन
वो अभी म्यूट हैं और हो सकता है अगर बोल भी रहे हो तो we are unable to hear him.
No problem, sir. You can even collude all the questions that can be raised. You can even send it as a mail so that I may be in a position to respond also. That's also possible.
So
मैडम ने भी किया हुआ है, सी आसर रानी नारंग मैडम. मैडम आप अनम्यूट करिए और आपका कोई क्वेश्चन है तो प्लीज.
सरद जी, मुझे लगता है कि लोगों को शायद पूछने में कुछ परेशानी हो रही है, अनम्यूट करने में परेशानी हो रही है अपने को. और या तो जो हमारे मॉडरेटर हैं जो इसे
अपार जी आप देखिए, मैडम अब अनम्यूट हो गई हैं आशा रानी मैडम. मैडम आपका क्वेश्चन है तो प्लीज पूछिए मैडम.
एक सेकेंड नारायण सुनो, आपको बात करने हैं वो लोग।
अब कैसे करे?
इसमें करो।
ऐसे बोल के हेलो
हाँ जी
सर,
सर,
बोलिए।
सर बताइए सर।
दिस इज राकेश नारंग सर.
सर प्लीज आस्क योर क्वेश्चन.
आपका क्वेश्चन था ना? आपको बुला रहे
हेलो, दिस इज राकेश नारंग.
Sir, welcome. Question raise कीजिए sir.
लाइट हेलो.
Sir, please ask your question. We can hear you.
नहीं सर.
बताइए जी.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन मेरे को याद नहीं आ रहा.
It's all. ठीक है सर.
क्वेश्चन पूछे बहुत सारे वेबिनार्स में.
अच्छा.
बालाजी सर का नंबर हमारे पास है, हम आपको प्रोवाइड करा देंगे और जब आपको याद आ जाए अपना क्वेश्चन यू कैन कम्युनिकेट विद हिम. अतुल सर आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी.
When our member is not remembering his question, so it may be.
नो सर, म्यूट.
म्यूट सर, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही सर. यू आर नॉट ऑडिबल सर.
डिस्टर्बेंस आ रहा है सब बहुत.
तो मुझे लगता है शरद जी, मुझे लगता है कि अभी थोड़ा टेक्निकल इशू भी है और टाइम भी लगभग हमारा पूरा हो रहा है. कोई ऐसा
जी सर।
बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चंस मुझे दिख नहीं रहे मेंबर्स की तरफ से, तो
जी,
वी
जी।
शुड कंक्लूड दिस सेशन. इज इट ऑलराइट?
यस सर, बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल।
यस सर.
So it was a wonderful session and an eye opener also. ऐसे 570 की बात बालाजी सर ने की गोइंग कंसर्न को लेके, ये इट कुड बी रेलेवेंट फॉर द आगरा आल्सो. Agra is a tourist place and we are dealing with many hotels also, and hotels are under very big threats, and we are hearing about a big 5-star hotel in Agra is about to close. So in this scenario SA 570 is very important. We never know as on 31st March that what is the fate of the hotel industry. So in this respect it is very important to the Agra itself. एक बहुत अच्छी बात जो बालाजी सर के ने बताई कि समथिंग इन माइंड एंड समथिंग इन फिंगर्स. तो क्या हमें अपने दिमाग में रखना है और क्या हमें प्रैक्टिकली चीजें करनी है. 2 इन माइंड 3 इन फिंगर्स, ऐसा उन्होंने बताया कि प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट और प्रोफेशनल स्केप्टिसिज्म हमारे दिमाग में रहना चाहिए. हम सस्पिशन ना करें लेकिन हमारा माइंड क्वेश्चनिंग जरूर होना चाहिए. हमारे चीजों को देखकर, इवेंट्स को देखकर, रिकॉर्ड्स को देख के हमारे मन में क्वेश्चंस जरूर अराइज होने चाहिए और उन प्रश्नों के उत्तर मैनेजमेंट से जहां तक संभव हो हमें लेने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. इसके अलावा बहुत सारे रिस्क की बात करी, ऑडिट रिस्क की बात करी. आज इस वर्चुअल वर्ल्ड में हम देख ही रहे हैं कि जिस तरह से डिपेंडेंसी इस पे वर्चुअल सिस्टम पे हो रही है, तो बहुत सारे रिस्क ऑटोमेटिकली जनरेट होंगे. इसके इनहेरेंट रिस्क हैं ही. आज हम इस सेमिनार के अंदर बैठे हैं और ऑन अ लाइटर मोड, आपको नहीं पता कि मैंने शर्ट के नीचे पजामा पहना है या पैंट पहनी है. तो दिस इज द इनहेरेंट रिस्क कि आपको नहीं पता होगा कि इस वर्चुअल सिस्टम में जब आप ऑडिटिंग के लिए जा रहे होंगे तो क्या हो रहा है एग्जैक्टली इंस्टीट्यूशन के अंदर. तो इसलिए हमें इस समय ऑडिटर्स की लायबिलिटी बहुत बढ़ जाती है. एंड इफ वी फॉलो द एसएस वेरी स्ट्रिक्टली देन इट विल बी वेरी गुड फॉर आवर ओपिनियन फॉर्मेशन. ऐसे 501 भी इस समय बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. ऐसे 701, 706 ऑल्सो. ये हमारा सारा ये हमारी ऑडिट रिपोर्ट को, हमारे ओपिनियन को फॉर्म करने में ये सारे ऐसे बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होने वाले हैं. तो मैं बहुत धन्यवाद दूंगा आगरा ब्रांच की तरफ से, आगरा के मेंबर्स की ओर से, RS बालाजी सर का. व्हाट अ वंडरफुल सेशन ही इज टेकन अवे. और इतना अच्छा सुंदर तरीके से इन्होंने सारा स्टैंडर्ड्स को बताया है, समझाया है, इनकी इंपॉर्टेंस को बताया है. मुझे लगता है कि आगे भी ब्रांच को जब कभी ये पोजीशन ठीक हो जाए तो बालाजी सर को आगरा बुलाकर एक प्रत्यक्ष सेमिनार भी करने की ओर हमें सोचना चाहिए. इन्हीं बातों के साथ मैं इस सत्र को विराम देता हूं और आगे की प्रोसीडिंग्स के लिए सुदीप जैन जी को आमंत्रित करता हूँ।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सो मच प्रमोद सर। एंड शब्दों का क्या कहें कि सर आपका जो प्रेजेंटेशन था, डेलिब्रेशन इज वंडरफुल एंड नो डाउट वी विल वेट द डे जिस दिन आप आगरा आएंगे हम सब लोग, और
आगरा पेड़ा के साथ। Just to say, Atul ji, while speaking yesterday, he told that you also use a color. You will be casual. You use English, Hindi, whatever you are convenient. You please use it so that the people will be feeling good. I am a little bit. I was a little bit worrying that whether I need to use Hindi as a medium of instruction or not. क्योंकि ये सब कुछ standards है. I cannot replace a particular word. So मेरा हिंदी भी उसी तरह fluency अभी नहीं है. मैं उसको भी बताया. I said you just speak, that's not a problem. Because that's an inherent problem in Tamil Nadu where these politicians made in such a way that you should not never learn any other language. That's not the case. We should. हमारा राष्ट्रभाषा हिंदी है. आपकी हिंदी तो बहुत सुंदर है सुनाना के लिए. I'm so happy I'm part of you all people.
Thank you so much, sir. And Atul sir, thank you so much. And before handing over to Gaurav bhai for vote of thanks formal, but I would like to share something. आज सुबह एक मैसेज आया था मेरे पास कि what is the question of the 2020? तो question is am I audible?
Yes.
तो ये क्वेश्चन है जो हर आदमी आज की तारीख में कर रहा है, पूछ रहा है सबसे am I audible? तो ये क्वेश्चन सर बहुत ज्यादा पूछे जाने वाला है पूरे साल में 2020 में. Thank you so much. And with these words, I hand over to Gaurav bhai for the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Gaurav bhai.
गौरव जो है नहीं.
हाँ नहीं, गौरव भाई है तो सही. शायद उनका कोई. गौरव भाई आप am I audible? गौरव भाई जो है थोड़ा उन्हें कनेक्टिविटी इशू हो रहा है, तो I think
I should convey
this opportunity. I should grab the opportunity to thanks to all the जो है गेस्ट. तो मैं यही कहूँगा कि जैसा कि चौहान सर ने भी बताया कि पूरे बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से जो सर आपका डेलिब्रेशन रहा, हम मेंबर्स के लिए, अगर ब्रांच के मेंबर्स के लिए बहुत ही फ्रूटफुल रहा है. और निश्चित रूप से जब भी ये कंडीशंस ऐसी होंगी कि हम सेमिनार कर पाएंगे, तो वो सेमिनार नहीं सर, मैं कहूँगा कि हम आपको वर्कशॉप में बुलाएंगे, क्योंकि डेफिनेटली ऐसे जो है वर्कशॉप के रूप में करें और हम इनको इलाबोरेट करके हम इनको स्टडी करें आपके साथ. तो हम आपको एज ए जो है स्पीकर नहीं, एज ए गुरु बुलाएंगे, और आगरा के पेठा और मथुरा के पेड़े के साथ में.
अच्छा.
तो चौहान साहब का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, उन्होंने समय निकाला और आज इस प्रोग्राम को एज ए सेशन चेयर किया. अतुल मेहरोत्रा सर डेफिनेटली जो है उन्होंने प्रूव भी कर दिया कि वो जो है आगरा ब्रांच के ही पार्ट हैं, और बहुत ही उन्होंने हमारे इस कल जो है जो डैमेज कंट्रोल का उन्होंने काम किया. और हमारे आगरा के सीनियर एग्जीक्यूटिव मेंबर राकेश अग्रवाल सर और सुदीप भाई ने पूरा प्रोग्राम अच्छे से मॉडरेट किया. और उससे पहले अभी आज ये ड्राइंग कंपटीशन भी बच्चों की कराई थी. और सर सुदीप भाई हमारे जो भी कल्चरल प्रोग्राम्स वगैरह रहते हैं उसमें भी सुदीप भाई को हम जिम्मेदारी दे करके और हम फ्री हो जाते हैं. तो सुदीप भाई के लिए भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. और अपार जी जो इस पूरे प्रोग्राम को टेक्निकली हैंडल कर रहे हैं, उनको भी थैंक यू. सभी का थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक्स टू ऑल.
Thanks to Pramod ji also, session chairman.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The session and
Very good, sir.
Definitely yes. Beautifully, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.